Hello and welcome to Energy Voice Out Loud, where we're leading the global energy conversation. And this time we're doing it live from the Energy Exports Conference right here in Aberdeen. Joining me today is Chris Behan from Worley. How are you today, Chris?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Glad to hear it. And I just caught your interview with Stuart Broadley from the EIC at the start of the day there, and it's informed me on what I want to ask you actually, and that's about skills. You touched on that near the end of your panel session, and you touched on something in particular that I think is super interesting. We often hear that there's a skill shortage within the energy transition. We need more people, but you came at it with a slightly different viewpoint. You said that there isn't a skills shortage because projects aren't going ahead. So can we maybe dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at the energy transition projects, you've got projects like offshore wind, you've got projects like green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, CCS, and the like. Now, a lot of these projects there's a plan in place for them. They're in the early development stage, so early engineering, and we at Worley are supporting a lot of these projects, in the UK and beyond. I guess the point I was trying to make was, they're in engineering stage at the moment. That will get them so far, and then a final investment decision needs to be made before they get executed and built. These facilities get built. Right now, we see that we've got the people to deliver the engineering, we've got technical expertise in that, and that we are ready to move to the next stage, which is to get these things built. Once we get to that stage, there is a risk that there will be a skills shortage, and that risk will only keep growing the longer that we delay the final investment decisions for these projects, because the goal of net zero stays the same. And the longer you leave it, the more these projects will bunch up, and then the resource risk will come. So right now, I would say there's a resource risk, but in the future, that's a potential. The sooner we start to execute these projects, the better, because then we can gradually build the skills base rather than try to do it in a sort of dramatic fashion. And that's the point I was trying to make.
And that's quite interesting, because I think, in the UK, we're in a general election year, and I think it'd be quite easy to say that there's political instability right now, and that's maybe what's causing FID delay, and no doubt it is for some projects. But we've also seen a plethora of impacts over the past few years that have also delayed things, like AR5 didn't have any offshore wind licenses handed out. So in terms of moving forward, what does the UK need to do, I suppose, is the answer or the question even, to accelerate these FIDs if we're going to risk creating a skills shortage that we maybe could avoid?
Well, I mean, it's certainly, if you take an example, you've got in the CCS space, you've got the track funding to support the clusters that are ultimately going to be part of the CO2 infrastructure, and the plans are there. The mechanisms are actually, in principle, are there. What needs to happen is the negotiations for the different clusters that have been selected need to progress to the point that there's an agreement between the operator and the government in terms of the commercial agreement. And from that point, then there's a clear sort of structure for the investment community to come in and commit their finances to it. So that's what really needs to happen. Changing the government doesn't necessarily help that, because it will cause some delay, but hopefully once we get through this, and if anything, an early election should sort of enable the discussions to move forward faster. But that's essentially what needs to happen. It's the same in the hydrogen space, where the hydrogen allocation round funding is coming up, and the commercial discussion and negotiations, a selection of which projects are going to be included needs to happen, needs to move forward, and then the investment community will come behind. So the policy makers lay the roadmap, they lay the structure for the investment community to come in. Our discussions with the investment community indicate they're all ready to go, they're all ready to invest, but they needs to be commercially viable for them to do so.
So they need to hear the crack of that political starting gun in order to sort of...
Essentially, that's it, and that's not biased one way or another. That's just the facts, and that's historic as well. If you look at the nuclear industry, look at the offshore wind industry 10 years ago, look where we are now. All these new emerging industries need to have that sort of initial support to get them off the ground, and then once you start building them, then you can truly realise improvements, economies of scale, etc., and drive the cost down over time. That's what's happened in solar PV. That's what's happened in the offshore wind sector as well. So the same thing can happen in CCS and hydrogen as we move. But the key thing is to fire the gun.
And that's quite interesting. You touched on CCS and you touched on hydrogen. Now, Worley's involved in a couple of Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire projects, namely Acorn and Kintore Hydrogen, right?
We're not directly involved in the Acorn cluster as such yet. That's something that we would like to be in the future. We are involved in the SSE Peterhead CCS project, along with our partners Mitsubishi and Technicas Renewable. I should say that Equinor are also party to that. And as you said, we're doing the feed engineering for the green hydrogen project, which Statera are developing at Kintore. So these are two, significant capital investment projects in the northeast of Scotland, which is great for this part of the world. To see that sort of real transition from the traditional North Sea business into a more of a balanced kind of approach going forward. But as I said this morning, the North Sea and the North Sea transition is still a key part of what we do here as well. But we're based in Aberdeen, and we'll service all of these projects from Aberdeen. That's what we're doing now. That's what we'll do going forward as well.
And so I suppose anyone maybe much like myself, maybe a bit cynical, sort of sitting here, taking everything with a pinch of salt. You're directly involved in projects that are getting caught in the weeds in the way that you're sort of describing here, right? So what's Worley's frustrations when it comes to sort of seeing this sort of hold up on projects like CCS and like hydrogen?
Well, I guess for us, it's a case of, from a business planning point of view, it doesn't give a great deal of certainty. It means you sort of stopping and starting, and sort of the challenge for us then is how do we manage that from a resource point of view. And that's one fortunate thing, because we do have other areas of the world which are moving faster, and we can then redeploy our people onto other projects. So we have people based in Scotland working on projects all over the world, and that's the reality. That will continue to happen more and more the longer things don't move here. So that's the real life challenge that we face day to day.
And I want to touch on that, because obviously we're here at the Energy Exports Conference. We're speaking about looking overseas for business, but that's a double-edged sword, right? UK firms can stand to benefit from looking overseas, but also if other markets seem more attractive, they can sort of maybe look to up sticks. Is that something that's a real concern when you're seeing that stop-start and lack of investment surety?
I don't think we'd up sticks, but I think what we will do is we'll move our focus to where the work is happening, and that's just the reality of the situation. But the UK, Scotland has an opportunity. If we can build first, then you can export the skills. Once you've actually built and operated, got an asset into operation, the experience that you get from that is vast. Much more than just doing design. You see the thing into operation, then you learn how the design works in reality. And I think if we can do that in the UK, then we have a really exportable skill set. We have some of that now, but we'll have it even more so if we can steal the march and make these projects happen.
If you'd like to stay a part of that global energy conversation, stay tuned to Energy Voice Out Loud.